Hi everybody, my name is Evan Patrick. I'm an animator and a motion designer. Today I'm going to be showing you this effect in Maya, this weaving, threading, fabric growth effect. I got this idea from looking at the guys who've done some awesome work for Royale. This Nike Evo spot is incredible. This weaving effect, this threading, weaving, winding effect where you can see almost every individual strand of fabric, but then it creates a full object. Another one is a tech fleece from Royale again. These guys have been kicking butt. This effect, this weaving thing, where individual strands, you've got this great cool look. Another example from Sam Howell. He did the same kind of thing. This effect has been done a lot in Softimage. Leonard Koch even wrote a script for it, LK Fabric, for Softimage, which does essentially this stuff, which I think he used or built it for this commercial. Andy Moore has some test scenes of it where you've got your individual strands and this awesome looking fabric. More stuff here. Let's see. Bingo did in a similar thing in Cinema 4D, kind of a woven fabric effect. Unfortunately, I don't know Softimage, and I don't really have a lot of time to learn a whole new software package to figure out that effect. I know Cinema 4D a little bit, but not enough to make something. Even if I follow that, I kind of screw it up, so I'm not adept at it. So I figured out a way to do it in Maya. It's not as elegant as Leonard's stuff here. He actually built a nice piece of software to do it, but it works, and you can get a similar effect if you work at it. So this is my little example, my ugly little example. It's just a sphere growing, and it's growing strands. This is a hair system that can be rendered in Arnold or V-Ray. To get something similar to what these guys have been doing. You can render it in Mental Ray, but you're not going to get the kind of depth that you're getting from an Arnold render, where you can actually have depth of the strands and see them actually look like pieces of geometry. So you're going to need a renderer that can handle it. The other thing you're going to need is a couple scripts, very simple. Random offset keys is an awesome script, very simple, it just offsets randomly keys. And we're just going to use this to add some randomness to our animation. The other thing you're going to need is MopKnit. MopKnit is a script that somebody wrote for Macs and someone else wrote for Maya, and you can get it on this page. There's a Dropbox link down here, and I'll post it. And what this does is flattens out pieces of geometry according to their UVs and creates a blend shape for them. So you can take any shape, flatten it out, wrap something to it, and then activate the blend shape, and those two shapes will take the shape of the original object. Kind of confusing, but you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is what we're going to make. We're going to make something like this, and I'll show you all the way through how I did it. And I have to admit, it's not that elegant. It's not that, it's not super fast, but it works, and you can get something that looks pretty cool. So let's get started. Let's start with a scene here. I'm going to create my geometry. Make a sphere, right? And we're going to activate our MopKnit. MopKnit options, boom. And again, this just flattens out according to UVs. So here we are, our object. I'm going to hide the original. And now we've got a blend shape here that will basically do what those things do, blend shapes do. Alright, so what we're going to do now is project curves onto this shape. What you're going to want to do is create your pattern for your cloth at this step. These guys have probably a very intricate pattern, but something like this is what I'm going to actually make. Just a simple sine, alternating sine curve shape. And to do that, we're going to project a curve. So grab our curves, simple linear 1 degree curve, place it over here. I'm not going to be super accurate, but you're going to get the idea. So let's just, whatever, just go along, blah, 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 duplicate, yes. And the reason we're doing this, you don't have to do it on a shape like this because the UVs are perfectly square. You could just layer your lines or your curves straight onto the surface. But if your UVs are an object that you've created and they're not perfectly square and they're all over here, you don't want to have to like grab each edge and like match it up to that. You know, you just want to project. So we're going to project all our curves onto our surface. We do that by going to polygons, project curve on mesh. And now we can hide these, and we've got curves on the surface. And what we're going to do is grab all of those and delete the history. We just want them to be there. The other thing we're going to do is delete all these little outliers here because we're just trying to keep it clean. Next thing to do is rebuild these curves because they're kind of messy. I like to have a lot of CVs just so you can deform them very easily, which is going to be our next step. So edit curves, rebuild the curve, cubic 200, just something really high, just to give you some geometry to work with. Now we're just going to make our deformation of the curve. So we're going to grab every other, let me actually hide buttons. I'm going to grab every other curve here, which is kind of annoying, but it works. We're going to go to animation, deformers, nonlinear, sign. And we're going to, first of all, rotate it in line with what we've got here. One, turn my bounds down so we don't run out. So this is our profile curve for the most part. We're just looking for a weaving shape. That looks okay. I'm going to grab the other ones and do the same thing, if I can grab it. And repeat that process. So deformers, sign, 90, 90. Okay. Come in here and we're just going to offset these a bit. About the same here. We're just going to move this guy over. I think you see where I'm going here. I'm just creating a little pattern. Alright. I'm actually going to leave this. It's okay. So now we've got those. I'm going to just grab all those and actually delete the history of them just to keep it clean because we have our pattern here. And we're going to create another pattern, which is the cross pattern that goes through the middle. I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way, which is just drop it on the surface. Modify center, and we're just going to eyeball it. There's probably a more accurate way to do it, but for now I'm not too worried. I'm just going to duplicate a bunch of these and put them in the center of our looping pattern here. And we probably won't be super accurate, but that's alright. We'll just try to keep them somewhat. Oh, of course that's not going to work. Da, da, da. Alright. Yeah, we're just going to go with it. Maybe clean it up a little bit. I'm sure there's tons of scripts out there that will help this process along, so feel free. So I'm going to open my outliner. Here are all those curves. Grab those, and I'm going to rebuild these. So it will bend. They will bend along with the surface again. So rebuild curves. And grab all my curves and group them. Get rid of some of this extra projection stuff we don't need. Probably just get rid of the original curves too, just to keep it clean. And then these are our base curves. Next step is you're just going to grab your base curves, grab your piece of geometry that you've projected them onto, or and you're going to wrap. You're going to create a wrap deformer, exclusive, auto, fall off mode, surface, create. So now, if you go back to your blend shape, activate it, you can see, I'm going to actually turn my geometry off. Actually turn my geometry off. Now we've got a pattern here of curves that are weaving around the surface, and they're on the surface, which is cool. So the next step involves paint effects. There's no, as far as I know, there's no script out there, or I haven't found one that will make a Maya curve stroke or expand. A NURB circle has a sweep, but there's nothing out there that I know of that will make this thing animate in any way. So what we're going to do is just use paint effects to get that effect. And we're going to grab our curves then, and we're going to go to our rendering menu, paint effects, curve utilities, attach brush to curves. And it's going to get ugly. So now we've got all these strokes that are not looking anything awesome. They're not really that great looking, but what they do have, the most important thing that we need, is it has inbounds. And you can animate this attribute to stroke itself, to grow along this surface. So that's what we're going to use it for. And really, we're just doing this to get that attribute available. I'm going to group all these, call them the stroke control, and I think you might see where I'm going with this. I'm going to grab all my strokes, I'm going to modify, convert them to paint effects to curves. So now we've got a new set of curves. I hid my base curves here. We've got what I will call driven curves. So I'm going to grab all these. They're all grouped up and weird. I'm going to group them themselves, call them driven curves. I'm going to delete all this junk we don't need. So now we've got something that doesn't look like we got anywhere, but we did. We got pretty far. So I can show you now. We're going to grab all our strokes, grab them all, and go into our attribute editor spreadsheet. Let me put a little time on the timeline, and we're going to keyframe, shape keyable, go over to your max clip, click it, 0, enter, key selected, and I'm going to go to 60, max clip, 1, key selected. Now all we did was grab every one of those strokes and animate 0 to 1. So now if you look at our object, something is happening here that is kind of cool. I mean, it's coming along, we've got some motion here. Now this is where MopKnit comes in. This is all very linear and flat and not that interesting. So, not MopKnit, I'm sorry, the offset keys. So I have a little icon here for offset keys. I'm going to click it. I'm just going to drop 10 in, offset. So now we got some cool offset kind of randomization of the animation, which is always nice. So that's something. All right. Now, how do we get this thing to? How do we get this look? I mean, that's what we're really getting at. And the trick for Maya is using paint effects hair, or in hair, really. I kind of think of hair in Maya as almost equivalent in some ways to strands in Softimage. I'm just not that adept at it, but I'll show you this effect. So we're going to create a polygon plane. This is just to hold our hair system. So we don't really need it for anything other than that. So we're going to move it out of the way and put it way over here. I'm going to grab the face of it. I'm going to go to in Dynamics, Hair, Create Hair, and now we have a hair system. So in our hair system, we don't need this to be dynamic, so we're going to turn off nucleus and visibility. Hair system, I just like to turn off the collisions just in case. I don't know, it's just habit. In the clumping, I'm going to get rid of this clump width scale taper. So now we've got this hair guy sitting over there. And what we do next is grab our hair system here, and I'm going to grab all my curves and go to In Hair, Make Selected Curves Dynamic. And we're going to show what we've got. We've got a big, weird looking fro haircut mess something. It's kind of funky. But the cool thing is it follows the curves. And I think you see where I'm going with this. You can go to the hair system and modify this clump width. So I'm going to bring this down to 0.1 maybe, 0.05, maybe 0.03 maybe, something like that. I'm going to hide my curves just because we don't need to see those driven curves anymore. We're just working on the hair system. So we've got something that looks interesting. And now it's just a matter of messing with the hair attributes to get the look you want. So right away you can probably see this is very sharp edge. This is just an attribute called thinning. If you turn the thinning up, you get more variation on that leading edge of the stroke, which is cool. The other thing is the twist. We want there to be a twisting effect to these. So what we can do is just go straight into the hair system and go down to clump curl point. This is very sensitive, but if you do 0.6, it's super, super curly, which is probably not what we want. But if we do, I don't know, 0.1, 0.51, we get something kind of like that. If I to maybe turn my segments up just a little bit. 0.5, something like that. Okay. And also hairs per clump. I mean, these are somewhat dense, but you can crank it way up if you want. I mean, you can go up to, depends on what kind of look you're going for. At this point, it's up to you and the attributes. You can just kind of mess with it. Now, the next thing is how to get these to render correctly. Like I said, you know, software renderer will render this if you look, but it's going to have that look of, you know, Maya hair. It's going to be shiny and it's not going to have shadows and they're going to be flat. That's okay, that's cool, but we want something that's a little more advanced. So that's when Arnold comes in. So I'm going to switch over to Arnold here. Just set it and leave it as is. And in my settings for my hair, I'm going to go to Arnold tab and turn this ribbon to thick. So now these will render with thickness like a tube according to the hair width attribute, which is at 0.01. So let me go in and create a light for Arnold light here so we can start seeing something. Disk. Yes. So we have a light, that's okay, but let's go back to our hair attributes and we're going to make a shader for this. We'll come down to shading and turn all this stuff off. And we're just going to rely on an Arnold shader to color these. Drop that in, maybe I'll give it a little bit of specular, maybe make it, I don't know, some kind of bluish, always blue, right? And so now we should start to see something. Let's see if we can get any kind of effect going. Turn my light up here. So you can start to see the effect that it's having. We come into our curve here and you can see what we've got. We've got curves that are driven by strokes that are leading a hair system in Maya. And what you can now do is work on this effect. And they're obviously too thick or not, just depends on what you're looking for. So this is the idea. I mean, this is the basic effect that I've come up with. It certainly isn't the most elegant process, but it works. And you can go back to your base shape and animate your, base shape. You can put deformers on it. You can do whatever you want to it. So that's it for now. If anyone has any questions or needs any help, let me know. If anyone comes up with an easier way to do this, please, please, please let me know, because it's a cool thing to work with. Thank you very much. See ya.